Isn't that first drink of coffee always the best? So I just got done doing about a half an hour of these deep breathing techniques from a mini class by a guy named Wim Hoff. So if you haven't heard of Wim Hoff, he's got to be really popular, but he's from the Netherlands. He's a Dutch fella who, at some point in his life, his wife passed away unexpectedly and he was left with 4 children and experienced a great amount of suffering from that experience. And I won't speak beyond that because I don't know him. I've just heard of him and read about him, and like some of you, probably learned about his breathing techniques and his ability to manage his immune system and his ability to manage his temperature and to withstand cold temperatures. And if you're interested, you can go to the WimHoffMethod.com. I'm not sponsored in any way by him. I'm just someone that decided to try this today. So he's the WimHoffMethod.com. They have a free mini class right now. I just got done completing it this morning. And let me say a little bit about why I'm doing it in the first place. So first of all, my name is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. I'm 44 years old. I'm a psychologist, and I live in Southern California. I was born and raised in rural Minnesota, a little town called Battle Lake, a place I love and hold dear to this day. And I'm only saying that to speak a little bit about my background. And I grew up in a small town, Minnesota. I ended up working in a coal mine for 2 years in rural Wyoming in my early 20s. Those experiences led me down this pathway of exploring my life as an artist and becoming a practicing artist, and over the years, for a while, becoming a full-time artist. And I still practice art every day, and I still, pursue art commercially, but that's not really my primary focus with art. My focus with art tends to be as a practice, as a form of exploration, as a way to connect with others and help others, explore an experiential medium for healing. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in all of that. So I went back to college in my early 20s and, long story short, became a clinical psychologist, ended up going to graduate school in Utah, and found my way to San Diego, worked at the University of San Diego for a few years, worked at San Diego State for a period of time, worked at University of California, San Diego for a period of time, just doing a series of postdocs. And none of that is really relevant except for it speaks to my background and what leads me to this particular place that I'm in here. So when I was about 27 and I was in graduate school, I was learning traditional clinical psychology theories and ideas, or traditional theories and ideas about how to help people heal through things like depression and anxiety and trauma, etc. I was becoming a psychologist. But along the way, at that particular time in our culture, this concept of mindfulness and yoga was becoming a much more popular thing. And this was just, back in 2002 to 2007 or so, when I was at that period of my life. So you can see how much has changed in our culture from back then to now, because now the concept of mindfulness and yoga and breath work, it's just become quite, I don't want to say ubiquitous because there's still a lot of people discovering it. But the fact that I just did a Wim Hoff Method class this morning from my phone that popped up on my Instagram says a massive amount about where we have come in how we approach well-being and healing, and just overall how we we live day to day. So when I was about 27, I came across a gentleman named Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And I didn't study. If anything, I was resistant because with no offense to anybody else, I grew up in the Christian church. I grew up with a fairly conservative mindset, and I'm not talking politics, just a mindset of you don't do these things that are outside the context of your faith or your religion. But as I grew into myself in my 20s, and as I opened up, I came across Thich Nhat Hanh, and I didn't study him. All I heard, was a phrase from him, essentially, and I don't know if this was even what he said, but it was essentially, if you can take care of your breath, then you can take care of the moment. If you can take care of the moment, then things tend to take care of themselves, essentially. That the essence of it is everything that we do, our concept of the past, our concept of the future, our ideas that we ponder and hold on to in our mind, our belief systems, our attachments, all of these things are creations in our mind. The truth is, something I say to myself every day, it really helps me a lot, is what if all I had was right here and right now? Meaning, what if all these thoughts I'm thinking and all these things I'm struggling with and all these things I'm perceiving and all these fears and ideas, all these socio-political things going on around me, what if none of that is actually real to me right here and right now in this present moment? So what if all I had was right here and right now? By doing that, what I do is I dramatically reduce the amount of data that's coming into my brain or the amount of information that I'm processing. That dramatically reduces the amount of potential threat that my emotional or limbic brain is perceiving at any given moment. Our emotional brain is designed to, what we call the limbic system, is designed to respond automatically to the perception of threat, whether it's in our own mind or in our external world. It really should be there to find lions and tigers and bears and poisonous berries in the wild. But in our modern world, what happens is we think about politics and we think about relationships and we think about our boss and we think about our bills and we think about our mortgage. And because we become intertwined with and attached to societal norms around us, these things do become threatening because we wrap our lives around our mortgage and our relationships and our jobs and our perceptions and our politics, our perceptions of what reality is about. But we have to remember these things are created things. These things are created and co-created. And because they're created and co-created and we all buy into it, they become things that are used to manipulate us. Because we're attached to them, because these things have the potential to create fear. Because we hold on to beliefs and ideas in our mind. We wrap our ego around beliefs and ideas and perceptions. And because we wrap our ego, and I don't like the word ego because it's another made-up concept that describes our perception of who we think we are. It's really like our practiced self in mind and body. But suffice it to say, wherever you put your attention has the potential to interact with your emotional brain and your body and to make you think you're under threat all the time, whether you actually are or not. So just by putting your attention into something that you perceive as threatening, you have the potential to make your emotional brain turn on your sympathetic nervous system, to turn on adrenaline, cortisol, essentially to arouse your body into a preparatory fight or flight state or a fight or flight type state. Whatever, it's stressful, it's not good for us. It's not good for us to live in that state. And I realize I'm going off, but I'm coming back. So when I was 27, I learned to pay attention to my breath. And from then to now, learning to pay attention to my breath, learning to pay attention to the moment, learning that all of these things that are in my head are things that I create and that we co-create, and that I wrap my ego and my mind around and my identity around. And in a lot of ways, I end up sacrificing my power. I end up sacrificing my time. I end up sacrificing my life to a whole lot of things that mean absolutely nothing to me. These are created things that occupy our time and our minds, and they find us living in perpetual fear and stress and at odds with each other because we've wrapped ourselves around the idea that they're actually real. Along the way, after moving to San Diego and as mindfulness became more popular, again, Thich Nhat Hanh and John Kabat-Zinn, I believe, and Eckhart Tolle, and on and on and on. There's many names that I won't mention, but mindfulness and meditation and all these things, yoga, became much more popular. I practiced breathing and noticing where my mind was and distinguishing between my values and my fears or my beliefs from 27 till now. I'm 44 now. It wasn't until a few years ago, in the context of going through a divorce, that for a number of reasons, I started to practice meditation much more deliberately and diligently. Quite honestly, begrudgingly, started practicing meditation, yoga. And I did these things not because I woke up one day and I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on my well-being and I'm going to become a much healthier person and all of that. By that time, I've been a psychologist for a long time. I've been an artist for a long time. I've been practicing mindfulness and breathing for a long time. But I was full of attachment. I was full of resistance. I was full of fear. I was very much in my identity, my ego, my perception of who I am. I was very much in attachment, in bondage with the ideas and beliefs and perceptions that society had fed me and that I willingly consumed. Excuse me. It wasn't until I went through this 3-year period of untethering my life in a way that what I've talked about in my podcast is, it's like I was submitted by the experiences of life. Nothing I did changed my circumstances. No amount of acting out, no amount of anger, no amount of sadness, no amount of crying, no amount of anything changed the fact that my marriage was falling apart. It was excruciating, as many of you know. And many of you have parallel experiences in your own way. We all have these experiences that are excruciating and painful. And what's interesting is, and to be clear, I'm not talking about my marriage falling apart because I'm saying I'm sulking or I'm saying woe is me or because I want to throw my ex under the bus. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I was walking along in my life and was fairly successful in a number of ways and was living the life I thought I was supposed to live, and I was fulfilling the ideas and dreams I thought I was supposed to fulfill. And then it all came crashing down in some ways. And I was put in a position of submission. And through that experience, along the way, several times along the way, I realized if I don't let go, if I don't learn how to surrender, if I don't let go of my ideas of the way things are supposed to be, if I don't let go of my ideas and fears and beliefs, if I don't let go of all of it, and it was a slow progress, anybody that is trying to change, you know that, we let go of a little bit, but we don't want to let go of all of it. And we fight for the survival of our vices and our habits and these things we do every day to cope and to get by. But the reality is, life just kept telling me, you're not done yet. You're not done surrendering. You're not done. Get your face in the ground. Get with your breath. Let go of your thoughts. What's interesting is, over the course of the past 3 years, what I am faced with has not necessarily changed that much. Meaning, I'm still faced with needing to let go, and now I'm in a place where I don't want to reattach myself, and I want to be in a place of letting go. But really, my focal point is my children. My focal point is my children and my clients and my art, and really just being in this present space and being willing to allow my actions in this present space to guide the path forward, learning about what faith really is. To me, faith is surrender in this present moment to God. God means different things to different people. It's using language to describe something that is phenomenally beyond, or phenomenologically beyond, language. So I don't get caught up in the language of God. What I do is I surrender in this present moment, breath by breath, to God, and to trust that if I continue to do that, as I'm doing in this moment, as I'm speaking, that it'll be okay. And that's what surrendering during suffering has taught me. But over the course of the past 3 years, I'm still faced with many of the challenges that I was faced with 3 years ago. What's changed dramatically is the way that I perceive and deal with those challenges. It's not even comparable. What is the change? What is the journey in a very small nutshell? It's letting go of ideas, letting go of the perception of fear, letting go of the beliefs and ideas and attachments of the way things should be, and recognizing they're just not the way I want them to be. It's just not the way I want, and that's not the way it's going to be. So learning progressively to let go of expectation, learning progressively that I cannot change anybody. I cannot make anybody do anything. What I can do is take care of my breath. What I can do is manage my voluntary movement. What I can do is manage my daily practice and my daily routine. What I can do is be really present for my children and the people I love and anybody that might cross my path, just to be with them in the present moment. And I'm sharing that part because I think there's this profoundly corrupt illusion in our culture that says we need to feel better, and we need life to feel better, and everything needs to feel better, and we need to nerf everything, and everything needs to be in this state of safety and perfection in order for all of us to be okay. And that's not true. What you need to do is become more adaptable, become stronger, become more balanced, become more simple. Let go of all that which does not serve your deepest values and your deepest good. So my experiences over the course of my adult life have led me down this path of progressively letting go of things that do not serve me or my loved ones or my community or my culture, really. Fear, anger, living in fear, living in anger, being in anger, in fear, in resentment, doesn't serve anybody, doesn't do good for anybody. You know how I distinguish the information that I take in? I do watch the news, but what I watch the news for is I listen to the stories they're telling and how they're telling them. I don't allow fear-based thinking or fear-based preaching to determine how I behave unless it's something that is dramatically right in my face and it's going to affect my family directly. I don't want it to be my motivation. So it's kind of like being the witness to your own thoughts, to your own sensations, to the environment and the world around you and the messages and the stories that are coming at you, but sitting there and being willing to say, okay, how do I want to handle this present moment? So the journey has brought me to this place, and this was a very long roundabout way of saying that part of that journey has brought me to a place where I try to live each day in a series of practices. I try to focus each day in a series of practices that serve me and my family, community, like I said. And I recognize, like I said yesterday, that we are what we practice. We are what we practice. Whether we like it or not, if you practice being fearful, you're going to be anxious all the time. If you practice running away from the things that you need to overcome, those things will have power over you. If you practice avoidance, you're just perpetuating fear. So I don't want to practice that shit. I practiced it long enough. I want to practice being with my breath. I want to practice being with this present moment. I want to practice being in love, choosing to be in love from the inside out, so that I'm not expecting everyone to fill me. I'm just choosing to fill myself, to allow myself to be filled with love, to surrender in the present moment to the divine that is all around, however you characterize that, to get the heck out of my own way and just to live that way, to live that path. So that brought me to the Wim Hoff Method this morning. It's something I've dabbled in, it's something I've played with, it's something, of course, I've seen YouTube videos and whatever I've seen, I've practiced. But what I want you to know, if you're actually listening up to now, I should have said this in the beginning, but is that the WimHoffMethod.com, Wim Hoff is offering a free mini class that is teaching the breathing techniques and the cold water practices and some other things. And this morning I did the breathing techniques. And I'm not going to get deep into it because I don't want to take that away from them, and I don't want to get into the practice of it. Suffice it to say, it was a beautiful experience. It allowed me to feel very awake and very alive and it allowed me to come out here and just want to sit here and talk to you honestly and openly. It filled my body with oxygen. It allowed my mind to be quiet. So I think I've talked at you enough this morning. Hope you're all doing well out there. And just remember, as a rule of thumb, you are what you practice. You are what you practice up here. Your emotional mind will believe whatever you're telling it, wherever you're putting your attention. You are what you practice in your body. If you're holding your body in tension, if you're acting out avoidance, if you're reacting and responding to your own thoughts and your own ideas and your own perception and what's happening in the world around you, if you're acting from a place of fear or avoidance or resistance, that is what you're teaching yourself. We're literally made to learn automatically from experience all the time. We're constantly updating the algorithms of our own mind and body. In other words, the rules for how we think and feel and respond and interact with the world around us, including our internal world. We're constantly creating it by how we behave in here and out here. Whoops. So you are what you practice. And recognize that I begrudgingly developed these practices over the course of 20 years in my life. Slowly starting with my breath, learning to move my body differently, learning to manage my mind differently, learning to let go of a lot. The reality is, a lot of the things in the world around me haven't changed that much, but the way I perceive it, the way I interact with it, the way I create and co-create has dramatically changed. And every single one of you has the ability to do that. Have a wonderful day. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. I do the Wizard Podcast. This is the Wizard Podcast. Have a wonderful day.